Hey guys, it's Derek here from Walking Wood. Welcome back to another video. In today's video I'm going to show you how you can make this coffee table out of cherry wood. This coffee table has got several features. On the front we've got 2 drawers. And then on the back we also have some storage down here too. Stay tuned, hope you like it. I was fortunate enough to get all of this cherry wood for free from a friend of mine who had no further use for it. So I took as much as I could. I filled up the rack, and as you can see I couldn't fit anymore. But I got to selecting the boards that I wanted to use for this piece. And now with it being air dried cherry, there was a lot of milling involved, so I'm super thankful to have my new jet jointer because that was put to use in getting these boards down to dimension. I'm not going to bore you with all of the jointing process because that went on for some time, but let's just say this jointer made light work of the process. Then it was time to cut the legs, so I took this piece of cherry over to the miter saw and cut to the length that I wanted for these legs before taking it over to the table saw to rip in half. Now what we're going to be doing was we're going to be gluing these pieces together just to give a thicker leg piece. Once the pieces were ripped to width, then I took them over to the clamps and we got them glued up. After glue up, I then took them over to the jointer again just to smooth them out before we were going to take them to the thickness planer to get them to our desired thickness. Then it was over to the planer. Lots and lots of planing just to get it down to the thickness that we wanted for these legs. Now it was time to cut the aprons to size, so I took the cherry over again to the miter saw and cut these pieces to the length that I needed, and then took them to the table saw to get the width. Once the legs were done with the planer, I then took them over to the miter saw to cut them to final length. Now with the aprons cut to size and milled down, it was then time to cut in the domino. So I'm using my Festool Domino here to insert a mortise into the pieces that's going to accept the apron to the upright leg. As you can see here, I'm just gluing that and inserting that in place with a mallet. Now I will say the domino is an expensive piece of equipment and not everybody has that, so another method it really is here. You could use dowels, you could actually do a mortise and tenon joint, you could use your Kreg Jig. So there's several different other options, but this, as I got this new domino joiner, this made the most sense for me. And then it was time to attach the leg upright to the apron, and as you can expect, with the domino it was just a perfect joint again and again. Once attached, then I took them over to the clamps and let them set overnight. And now if you stay tuned to the video later, you will see that I've actually changed up the design. I wasn't overly happy with that middle rail, so stay tuned and check that out. As you can imagine, with some air-dried cherry, there was several knots in the pieces and the coffee table, and so what I did was I chiseled the rough bark out there, and then I taped over one side, and I filled it with total wood epoxy. With the epoxy drying and the face frames and the clamps, then I decided to get milling up the middle partition piece. And my new Rotex sander made light work of sanding down the epoxy once it was dry. Here I am attaching all of the pieces that are going to be the middle partition piece to separate the front from the back. I've ripped those down and I'm gluing those and then putting them in the clamp. Then it was back to the domino again, here to cut some mortises into the face frame. These are going to be accepting the side rails for the piece. Now before attaching the side aprons, what I did was I took the aprons over to the table saw and I actually cut dados in the middle of these pieces. Now that was going to house the center divider, and you'll see what I'm doing here in the next little part. As you can see, the piece turned out really good once it came out of the clamps. What I'm doing here is attaching a piece of glue to all of the dados that I cut in the side aprons, and then what I'm going to do is to insert the partition board that's going to slide into those dados. Next up, it was time to fill in the sides with the side panels. So what I did here was I took them to the miter saw, cut those to size, and then ran them through the planer to get them to the desired thickness before taking them to the table saw, getting them down to width and to make sure for a snug fit. Then turned the table on the side, attached a piece of glue to the aprons and then to the edge of these panels, put them in place, and as you can see, look how snug that fit is, and then I attached them using brad nails. With the side panels in place, next up was to go over to the miter saw and to cut down the drawers to size. So what I'm doing here is getting all of the side pieces for the 2 drawers that I'll be making. So if you're like me, drawer slides are always a challenge, but this jig makes light work of that, so highly encourage you to get one of those. Here I am just putting in one of the 4 drawer slides that will be accepting the 2 drawers for this piece. I lowered the blade a little bit here to cut in a dado into all of the side panels for this drawer. This will accept the base of the drawer once I assemble it together. Then it was time to put this drawer together. Used glue and brad nails, and then this bottom panel piece fit into the dados, adding a little bit of strength to these drawers. Then it was time to attach the drawers to the slides. Now again, I used the jig. The jig is in the inside part, which is keeping the drawer level. So highly encourage you to get one of those if you haven't already. Now here's that piece that I was talking about earlier. This middle partition piece, didn't want that, so just took it out completely. Then it was time to put the tabletop together. So what I did here, using the domino again you can use dowels here, you can use biscuits, but I chose to use the domino to align the boards together. I put 4 dominoes in each board and then glued them together. Now while the tabletop was drying, what I did here was I went over and started to work on the shelf. I used a small strip of cherry and then brad nailed and glued that in place. That was going to be kind of the ledger board for the shelf. And again, look how tightly that fit was. Just hit it in place with a mallet and then did the same with the next piece that was going to butt up to this. Brad nailed and glued in place. Now with the front piece, I had to cut out a notch on either side and just to get by with the leg, and I used my Japanese pole saw to get by with this. And then it was time to sand the whole top. I started off using the Rotex and then worked my way up to 220 grit. And then finally I added on a round over to all of the edges. To attach the top, I used these figure 8 clips. I got those off of Amazon. And what I used here was a Forstner bit just to drill down to accept that little piece. And as you can see, it was a snug fit again. Another tricky task sometimes can be attaching drawer pulls, making sure that they're the same distance apart, making sure that they're level, but again I use this jig to help me align all of the drill holes and make sure that the hardware is all looking good. And then it was time for the finish. I used Odie's oil. That was the first time that I've ever used it, and a small drop of oil here can go a long way on this piece. And so I used my scraper here just to even the first coat out.
The fact that you and I are working here today is evidence of that.
And as you can imagine, this process took a long time, so I'm not going to bore you with just watching me finish the piece, but it turned out really good. Once it was all finished, I came back about an hour or two later and I used this buffing attachment that I got from a drill just to make a really nice sheen off of the piece, and it turned out awesome. And here it is, the final product. a coffee table made completely out of cherry wood. I'm super excited to, one, be done with this project, but also just so excited just to see the finished outcome. Really happy with this piece. It'll last us for years. And if you're wanting some more detailed versions of this, we're going to be hitting up our blog soon with a detailed post about how you can make this with all the different dimensions. So thanks so much for tuning in today. If you haven't already, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, share it. We would love that and really appreciate it. But guys, thanks so much for watching.